Ukraine has a new drone now. So far, Ukraine has already innovated numerous times in this war. Of course, we cannot forget the Dragon drone, then we had a drone carrying a RPG, and now we have a flamethrower drone. So let's break this all down with none other than former Navy SEAL Squadron leader Chuck Farr. But like always, be sure to hit the like button down below, especially in this weapons video that YouTube's probably not a fan of. And let's start.
Right. So we're seeing the test run of this Ukrainian flamethrower drone, and this is different from the drones they're previously using right now, which project thermite onto the ground. This is actually a fuel aerosol mixture, so you can see it right now. And you can see it's burning so great it had a propulsive effect on the drone, which spun out, but drone operator brought it back under control. So again, this is sort of like ejecting flames, almost like napalm, and that is different from thermite. So this is another treat that Russian soldiers, they got to worry about these things now.
Wouldn't thermite be more effective since it burns longer?
You are spot on. And thermite burns hotter and burns longer. So I think this was just a little test shot because, you know, for my money, if you're going to put a drone over the target, you want to bring the most effective weapon. So, for example, this flamethrower, it probably wouldn't even set a vehicle on fire. On the other side, thermite is sort of like the blood in Alien. When it hits a piece of metal, it just keeps burning right through it. If you put it on the top of an engine, it'll burn all the way through the engine, out the bottom, and start burning into the ground.
And I'm not sure if you'd be familiar with that. I know thermite is like in the gray zone of the Geneva Convention, but flamethrowers, they are pretty much banned, right?
You know what? I'm not sure that they are banned. The thing is that besides what you see in war movies, it's really dangerous to have a flamethrower on your back. First of all, you're going to be a prime target, and if it gets hit, you're going up in flames. So they're really not a practical, weapon on the battlefield. However, they look great in movies, and you see them a lot.
Now, according to international law, flamethrowers are classified as incendiary weapons and are therefore regulated by Protocol 3 of the Geneva Convention. This prohibits the use of any weapon designated to set fire to civilian targets. This law does not outright ban flamethrowers. In fact, there are no laws prohibiting their use against enemy combatants. Oh, this is Ukrainian anti-crab guns, and it just looks like it's out of a movie, some kind of animation.
Yeah, so what we're looking at there is AAA, anti-aircraft artillery, and that will be everything from 20 to 40 millimeter anti-aircraft fire. And as you listen to the sounds of it, you can hear a certain piece going chug, chug, chug. That is likely a radar-guided gun, because if you're only going to shoot 3 bullets at a time, you want to make sure you're aiming at. But this is a pretty good example of what is called volume of fire. These things are mostly used, shooting like this, mostly against Shahed drones, which are somewhat more predictable, and they're slow. And there you can actually see a spotlight going up. And again, the spotlight, just like from World War II, they're trying to identify the target, illuminate it, and there we've got something on fire and making an unscheduled stop. So that was a hit right there.
So is this the same gun they would use against missile, or that would be something else?
Well, these are short-range air defense systems for AAA. It could be used against a cruise missile, but you are going to get it kind of as a lucky strike. There are a number, though, of very highly developed AAA systems in Ukraine. One of them is called the Skynex system, and it is kind of right out of the Terminator. It is a fully AI functioning autonomous autocannon, radar guided. So you can put this thing out and you can program in what you want it to defend and throw the switch, and it will find, lock on, and engage anything that flies in its area. So some of what you're seeing are probably Skynex batteries as well. But what you're seeing here is like the last ditch air defense, which is AAA. You know, you've got longer range air defense systems like the Patriot, shorter range like NASMs and Croatel, and then even shorter ranges like Stingers, and the last line of defense is AAA like this.
Next clip, we have 6,000 troops missing in action. Like, I guess they're dead, so going in the grave. Is that a common thing? That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, burying people in the battlefield?
Absolutely. There's a good reason and a bad reason for that. The Russian officers do not want to report their actual casualties. You know, that's the reason, you know, that of course looks the way it looks. This is a slightly better look. They will also take someone who they know is dead, but they will carry them as living on the books, and one result of that is their family keeps getting paid. But in this case, we've got a mass grave with, look, 6,000 Russian casualties. Look, that's not insignificant, right? To put that in scale, look, 1,500 people were killed at Pearl Harbor, right? This is 6 times that much, and this is only one graveyard in one place. And again, you know, you've got Russia has never reported its casualties. The British Defense Intelligence and the Ukrainian Armed Forces, they report the casualties. And again, as I estimated, it is more conservatively, more than 700,000 people. That's almost twice the number the U.S. lost in all of World War II. In the Atlantic, in the Pacific, in Europe, it's staggering.
Let's see. 1 million almost next year.
Yep, absolutely. It'll be there.
Oh, this is more of a build-up. This is a Russian tank that's destroyed. At least that's what it looks like. And we have some reports that North Korean tanks are now coming in. So I was going to get to that in a second, but I wonder what you can see, anything if I'm missing.
Yeah, you know, I'm not a real armor, but you can see it's got a cope roof on it, and you know, some of this various plating. The thing is, and Sam, you and I talked about this a little while ago, just a C4 charge the size of a Coke can. You can configure the explosive. It's pretty easy. You mix it with a little Vaseline and you can make Play-Doh out of it. And you can rig that shape charge so it'll blow through anything. So what a lot of times what the drone operators will do, the Russians seem to like to up armor their turrets. Well, you can land the drone on the back deck and disable the engine. So now it's going to sit here and do that. So that is what might be happening right now. We see this white colored smoke. Once the vehicle is disabled, you know, you see them. They vector in 3, 4, 5 drones on this. The other thing, so you've got there were only 3 people in a Russian tank as opposed to a NATO tank has 4 people: commander, gunner, loader, and driver. The Soviets decided a long time ago that if they put 3 people in a tank and automated their loading, they wouldn't need a loader. So they could build smaller tanks that cost less, had lower profiles, everything was groovy, except all of these cats are sitting right on top of their ammunition. No blast walls, no blowback, no nothing. So when you penetrate the crew space in here, it's turret toss. And you see those things, they go orbital. Again, that isn't something you could change in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. It's going to take a total redesign.
I guess that's why they're getting North Korean tanks. These are tanks, right? It says...
Let's see. I got to zoom up a little bit here.
You're good. It says M1989.
I think that is that's self-propelled artillery.
Okay, I'm wrong.
Artillery piece on a tank chassis. So Russia's artillery units are at least 20, 30, 40, sometimes even 50 artillery pieces a day get taken out, because Ukraine, I mean, the volume of fire is many, many times more Russian shells are coming into Ukrainian territory than Ukrainian shells going into Russian territory. But the Ukrainians aim at Russia's guns. They've got that's called counter battery fire. And, to put it in the Hollywood way, the Russians spray and pray, and the Ukrainians hit exactly what they're aiming at. So, and you think about this. Imagine that your country's it's so effed up that it needs North Korea, right, that is copied off the 1950s crap you sold to them in the 70s.
It's a cycle.
Man, it's kooky.
Another Kursk thing.
All right, that was almost certainly an anti-armor mine. I can't tell what that is, but I can tell by the next thing that is going to happen. Yep. So the second mine was likely an anti-personnel mine. See, it's smaller. That was an anti-tank mine, and you saw the secondary detonation there. Yeah, that didn't end well.
They send a lot of drones after something's taken out.
And you can see when the drone is diving in, a lot of times then the video feed will go out. That's the Russian countermeasures. But the Ukrainian drone pilots have been trained. Once they get a picture and an intercept, they just continue to fly it. So in this case, you saw the countermeasures working, but the drone's going to make the hit anyway.
So that's exactly what the reconnaissance drone is capturing, right? The drone making the hit?
Right. So think of an upside-down wedding cake. The bottom layer, which is the smallest because it's upside down, those are the tactical drones, first-person drones. The next layer up, slightly wider, are higher endurance drones like this one that's filming the engagement. And then above those are like the Luna NGs. Some of these drones have, you can fly them for 22 hours. So that's the interlocking layer here. So this is the drone that is coordinating all the attacks. And he's on the radio saying, everyone converge on, the bend in the road at 8-digit grid coordinate, blah, blah, blah. So these drones are going to converge on it. And they will keep hitting that guy until they get a big enough mushroom cloud.
And the signal jamming that Russians are using, is that just jamming the video feed, or is that jamming like the controls too?
They have various, individually circuited countermeasures, and they will do a lot of things. They will try to jam the video. They will broadcast battery low signals. They will broadcast, flight malfunction, land the drone now. But lately they've just been broadcast, they just try to fritz out the video. But again, it doesn't work. So as this guy's coming in on the target, the drone operator, as soon as he computes in his head, and probably when he's at, 30 yards away from the target, he knows I'm going to lose the video feed, but I'm going to fly 20 degrees down and I'm going to fly for 30 yards. So even when he loses the drone the video, and we so often see that, but then you cut to this location, the big picture, and you see that he nailed it.
Yeah. I guess that's how they are studying too. If they miss, they fix.
Yeah, I've spoken to, I've got a good friend who is a drone operator over there, and he is flying dozens of drone missions a day, maybe even 20. He'll take one up, it goes out, bang. He takes off another one, it goes out. And the thing is, he doesn't even have to launch from his location, right? They're getting networked flight controls. So somebody somewhere else can throw that drone into the air and he assumes control over it. So, and again, it's always amazing to me. 800 days ago, there was no such thing as a first-person drone that killed tanks. It didn't exist. And the United States wouldn't even have put it into production. If you walked into Raytheon and said, you're selling $270,000, Javelin missiles for $1,000, I could take out a tank. Man, they don't want to hear that. It's just not going to happen. And look, I worked for DARPA. I've worked for Every organization that ends in a vowel I've worked for, they weren't keyed up to develop things this quickly. They weren't. This is Ukraine. It's changed ground maneuver warfare. This has fundamentally changed how you're going to capture and defend territory for the rest of eternity, right? They have changed everything. And we see so much of this war, we don't even stop to think of it, that they have revolutionized ground maneuver warfare. Pretty amazing.
A lot of innovation happened in the U.S. during World War II and Cold War.
Absolutely. It's innovation is what wins wars. Absolutely. And I've said this before too. Russia invaded Ukraine with the best plan they had from 1983, right? 1983. They wandered into the first 21st century war, and they're getting their ass thrashed. Yeah, so what we're looking at there is a black hot thermal image, right? So you could see the tank moving. It's black. You've got two positions on your basic black and white thermal. You can go to white hot or you can go to black hot. And obviously that's the tracking. And, the reason you have white hot and black hot is as there's clouding, if something is in a field where a lot of other things are burning, you can toggle it back and forth again. And it doesn't really show it in this video, but there are so many times you can be scanning for the target and you can see their tracks or their footprints because they'll disturb the ground. And there'll be a temperature differential between what's on the top of the ground and even what's half an inch down. So it's not impossible, but it's hard to spook. It's hard to spoof a thermal camera.
Also, I think you're probably keeping up more than most people. How's Russia's counteroffensive into Kursk going? Any news recently you've read?
It's kind of going back and forth, but Ukraine has still captured more territory of Russia than Russia captured of Ukraine all year. So Ukraine is holding on to about 900 square kilometers now, down from 1,000. The problem that the Russians have is, and actually this is the Russians' problem, they attack on a narrow front, and the Ukrainians allow them to penetrate on like a one kilometer across salient and allow them to advance 10 or 15 kilometers. In warfare, if you got anything sticking out like this, it's going to get bitten off. So the Ukrainians will fall back, allow the Russians to advance on a narrow front, and then they'll counterattack them from right and left. But again, this shows the low quality of Russian military leadership. We have this expression in the SEALs: if your attack is going really, really well, you're probably being ambushed, right? So these guys just don't get it. You're advancing, and you tell those guys, keep going, and they're 20 kilometers from the zero line. Man, they're a long way from help or mercy. So there have been repeated stabs into the Kursk salient, but it isn't working. And the North Koreans made their combat debut there, and they didn't exactly flip the script.
That's good news.
That's good news, absolutely.
YouTube is still not a fan of a lot of topics we cover, and that means the videos get restricted and demonetized. That's why we recently launched memberships and Patreons. This way you guys can support the content we make directly if you're able to. Because we want to continue covering this type of topics even if advertisers don't like it. We like doing it, and hopefully you guys like watching it. That's why Patreon and memberships give us a way to continue doing this without worrying about YouTube demonetizing our videos. So if you're interested and you're able to support us, you can do so by joining our Patreon or becoming a member on YouTube. The QR codes will be on the screen and the links in the description. Your support is greatly appreciated.